And
Hello and welcome to the UKGameShows.com Bothers Bar whole of 2019 results. Once again, we've let you loose, for better or for worse, on the polling for what you think is the best, worst, and most current game shows of the past year. I'm David Bodicum, and I'm a game show consultant when someone chooses to hire me. And then with me, we have Daniel Peake, who is a question researcher on Only Connect, and helped me murder 20 people in Scotland once. But let's not go into that because the police are still looking for us. Good evening, Daniel.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to seeing just how right or wrong the public opinion is later.
Oh, well, they're always wrong, but there we are. We can't help that, fortunately. That is how democracy works. But let's not go into that right now. And we also have with us a woman who caused an international event when Greta Thunberg had to change her name to Sharon, thanks to a question that she wrote. It's Laura Conlon. Hello, Laura.
Hello. Thank you for having me back after the chaos of last year.
Yeah, I did think it was a bit much of you insisting that I should now be called Michelle, but let's not go into and then we also have another person with us who is, of course, the masked vote counter, who's been assimilating all your votes. Good evening, masked vote counter. How are you?
good evening.
So, Mr. Crow, how has the turnout been this year?
Turnout has been quite good. It has been up on last year.
Excellent.
I think it's David Beckham.
Well, of course, we are live right now. If you're watching us on the feed, so why don't you submit any messages on Twitter to hashtag #BBPoll if you think you know who it is, and of course, we will be dropping copious hints throughout this particular broadcast. And of course, there are comments down the side of the YouTube stream as well. And I can tell you, it's not Barack Obama, Ben Justice, strangely. Although I can see why you might think that. So, first of all, we are going to go to the Hall of Shame, the illustrious place where the formats that didn't quite make it live. And for once, I think we are 5 for 5. Normally there's something that gets recommissioned somehow, but I think unless...
Usually number one.
Yeah, yes. But I'm fairly sure all of those are not coming back to visit us again. So that's that. So let's have a look at the 2019 results. So, mass vote counter, please can you go through the minor positions 10 to 6 for us, please?
In joint ninth, supermarket.
No, I think you can use it. I think you can use normal voice from now.
Okay. In joint ninth, supermarket sweep and the Hangover Games. In joint seventh, the greatest dancer and the hit list. In sixth, the wall.
Intriguing.
Surprising.
I'm slightly surprised by the wall, just because, but then I think that's because it was quite a high-profile thing. So I'm hoping that we'll see it on the Hall of Fame as well.
People not very happy with the hit list on the Hall of Shame, according to Twitter, and the wall. Everyone a bit surprised about the wall as well. So yeah.
I could see there's a lot of filler on the hit list, so I can see why that could feature on people's Hall of Shame. It's I think you described it, Masked Vote Counter, as a decent music quiz spread out over about 45 minutes of too much stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there's several production things about it which, frankly, rankle. I mean, I think having 50-year-old people high five youth people in the audience running into a studio, a little bit weird. I think there's too much chat. But I think there are things I like about it as well, very much so.
But if it was going to be done a bit more conventional with, let's say, I don't know, a Dermot O'Leary at the helm, would it have attracted quite so much attention? I'm not sure it would.
Fair.
Anyway, well, we'll see if that pops up in any of the other polls. So, in fifth place, we have.
In for a Penny.
Oh, okay.
It surprised me a little bit as well, actually.
Kind of an inoffensive show. Sort of.
Do you think that's because it was just a bit, for lack of a better term, a bit naff? Just sort of not punching above its weight, maybe? I think it's perfectly competent.
And it even had a Christmas special, didn't it?
And that's going to be another series as well. So
Yeah. I thought it was as well. Yeah. So, okay.
Oh, not happy in the chat.
All right.
Number 4, and this surprised me a bit, and I'll tell you why afterwards. And it's Hey Tracy. And the reason it surprised me a bit is because if a show on a digital channel isn't very good, it usually just sinks without trace. Here, enough people voted for it in quite reasonable numbers for it to make a Hall of Shame. But to prove a point, the last time a digital show made a Hall of Shame was 2012. Oh, hello.
Yeah, that's right.
Whereas good shows tend to still do quite well. So for something to come up this high is quite interesting.
You'll have to forgive me. I never watched it, and I only vaguely remember it. It's about someone calling someone or posing someone on the phone.
Basically, it bills as a prank call show. It's sort of not really. Celebrities playing for members of the public are asked sort of unusual questions, and Tracy, the show's AI from Wigan, gives them a choice of 3 people who might know the answer, but haven't been forewarned that they're going to get called up or anything. So all I have to do is basically try and get chat to these people and get the answers out of it for prizes. That's sort of it. For me, it's just forgettable.
Yeah, the thing that those two shows share is a lot of interaction with the common person.
Well, this is it.
Not a contestant.
Yeah. I've got Alex Williams saying, "Hey Tracy, a real heartbreaker. You could tell production really had a nice idea, but casting just wasn't there. It was also very ITV2 in its celebrity casting, for better or worse. I'm sure I can guess what most people watching this think. So." Yeah, that is Hey Tracy. Oh, David's gone. Oh, that's exciting. He
didn't like that poll.
This is a first in the UK game show poll of the year history. Internet lagged out. He's back in just a second. Meanwhile, let's have a look at your. A lot of you having a conversation about Stephen Mulhern on the YouTube chat. Mark Lebet, Stephen Mulhern is a very good technical host. The public just don't want to. I sort of agree. I think he's a good host, and I like him, but he just seems to rub a lot of the public up for, not the wrong way, but completely ambivalent to him. He's a difficult position, really, but they're trying with him. I mean, catchphrase is decent. And I disagree with In for a Penny being in 5th place in the Hall of Shame. I thought it was for a Vox Pop style show, which genuinely don't do very well. it was quite successful. I mean, Billy on the Street is the only other successful one. And what these two things share is that the game is not really relevant. It's just something to hang the chat around. And Stephen Mulhern is good with talking to people. So
He's very, very good. He's extremely competent because that show could easily die on its bottom.
Yeah, it could do.
It's after 9 p.m. I can use the word arse.
Yes, you can. Well, I'll put explicit on the YouTube
at 8
video.
a.m. with your cornflakes. Yeah. Street Mate, for example, shows how Vox Pop Show can potentially.
I forgot about Street Mate. Yeah, Street Mate was a good show.
Indeed, that was Davina. Who hosted it after Davina?
Test Daily did it for a bit. They redid it a couple of years ago with Test Daily, but it was someone else. I think it was. I'm gonna look this up now.
Scarlett Moffat.
Sorry, Scarlett Moffat did it very recently. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Yes, of course. Has that been out yet, or have I
so.
Missed it?
But I think it was one and done. I think
that appears to have sunk without a trace.
Yeah, we're still waiting for David.
Could that pop up? He is on his way back. We couldn't tranquilize him completely.
Sorry, yes, Daniel Hurst points out that the HCT version was Holly Willoughby, not Test Daily. Yes, that's of course. Why do I think Holly Willoughby did it? Well, it wasn't. I think Test Daily did it. I don't know. See, now I'm 38. Things like facts, I'm not so hot on, unfortunately.
This is why you've been put in charge of the counting.
Absolutely, I can count things and I can look things up. I'm a tiny bit loud. How's that?
You're sounding better. Yeah, much better.
Excellent. Thank you very much. This is good because we're using Hangouts for things previously, and I've sounded too accurate apparently. So we've done some things. And thanks to Scott Rux, currently in the YouTube chat, for spending 3 hours with me on Saturday night trying to work out the sound, and being pretty successful with it. And thanks to our 50+ viewers who are watching right now, who are sticking with us despite the fact that we're waiting for David to return.
With the PowerPoint.
with the art department.
Apparently, Scarlett Moffat Street Mate was in 2017.
Really?
So that really did pass us by.
Yeah.
If David doesn't pop back in the next minute or two, shall we continue?
Yeah, we'll continue without him. Without the graphics. This is like a radio. How exciting.
You could say we're more environmentally friendly, yes?
Yes. Alex and Millen, talk about Take the Tower in the meantime, please. What's quite exciting is I saw that they're showing it in Sweden. But I think presumably it was just a subtitle. So it's sold. It's sold internationally. So well done, Take the Tower.
What nationality is Lundgren?
Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is he Swedish?
I want to say yes, but I don't know.
I'm sure someone will tell us.
Yeah. I tell you, I don't want to keep our viewers waiting, and David will catch up in Richmond. So let's move on for the moment. So, at number 3, Headhunters.
Yes, I could sort of understand why. Number overload would be my summary there.
I think one of the commenters, and this is on the site, the write-up will come here afterwards, that it had the worst rules to fun ratio of of any show of the year, which I think
a bit whistle stick.
Well, it's had a lot of interesting ideas, and never really the time to explore them very well. It felt like I had to cut a lot out. I mean, it was a lot there. Oh, I've got another. It's like Love Island. I've got another text. Found the issue. Hang on. 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, we can talk about it in 1 or 2 minutes. It had a lot of. It tried to fit too much into 5 minutes, and the ideas were interesting, but it was not actually very compelling at any point. I felt no real need to watch it after the first couple of episodes. I mean, I gather that when the money got high, it got quite exciting.
I was going to say, if they doubled or tripled or 10 times the prize money, would it have been a more interesting show?
I don't know. It depends on how they played the sort of the buying off people mechanic. I mean, it seemed quite strange that we had a pool of 20 odd people and 14 of them weren't used like at all for each show. You know, at least in Impossible, everyone gets to answer a question on camera and then gets eliminated slowly. You got a. Just looking at the comments, Alex McMillan says Headhunter's set was 3 times as large as it needed to be. Well, that's true. Mark Lebet loved the mechanic of Headhunters. It was an interesting mechanic. Something else that someone brought up in the comments is that it's a weird thing to effectively be not worth winning. Certainly early stages, it was if you were one of the captains, if you won, you were off the show, whereas everyone else could, if I remember correctly, could continue playing and earning a bit more money. That's a bit of a moral hazard, I think.
It's also, in some ways, it's a show of diminishing returns because you add more money in after each round, but you've also siphoned some of that money off because you've bought someone, and the people later on, they tended to get a bit more money, but not all of it was going to the captain. And shows where there's a decreasing jackpot throughout tend to not do as well as where your money's increasing throughout. So, £1 million drop is a notable exception here, but I'm thinking of things like 5 minutes to a fortune, where you start high and you just go lower. They tend to not do very well. So I'm wondering if the fact that the money wasn't particularly increasing was also a factor.
Shall we move on to number 2, as David's not here yet? So,
Shall.
David's back.
Oh,
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, my word.
You're right.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. It's a first for the poll results.
So what happened was, it looks like downstairs my router has fallen over, and the power cable came out.
Wow.
So I'm not saying there's a poltergeist or anything, but that was very spooky, because I can promise you nobody's downstairs. Anyway,
we're just about to do number 2.
Jolly good.
Okay, number 2. The Switch.
Oh, okay.
2 games in 1. Great. I mean, it looks so cheap, is the problem. And Sanjeev Bhaskar, on paper, not a bad choice of host, but very dry when it actually came to the crunch, which was quite unfortunate, really.
Yeah, lacked a little bit of atmosphere. I thought the questions were a bit chestnutty. The show felt long as well, as in it felt like it could have done with either. It had loads of questions, but the questions themselves weren't particularly interesting, so it could have done with something else or something. It felt a bit long.
I quite like the Switch in terms of I quite like the graphics package, actually. I thought it looked quite good. And the mechanic of the Switch was good. I just didn't really get the point of these very long speed rounds that bank money that has absolutely no effect on the game. So if it has no effect on the game, there's no jeopardy involved. So it really smelt of filler, if I'm honest. And it's a shame that they couldn't find a way of somehow, let's say, like every time you got a question wrong, it switched to a different player, or there must have been something else that you could have done. like the National Lottery jet set thing. Like if you get a question wrong, then you're in danger of being the first one to be in the red zone when it comes to the first switch question or something like that. Anyway, no, okay, that's now. I have to say, I really, really struggled with my Hall of Shame votes because, I mean, like those 4 shows, they're all pretty competent, aren't they? I mean, I wouldn't say that they are. In any other year, they would be nowhere near the Hall of Shame.
It's just been pointed out in several other comments, and you'll see it in the write-up, that the bar is much higher for a low show these days because 10 years ago he's been nowhere near the Hall of Shame. So yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you there. These are not. If this is the worst that's come out, then not got much to complain about.
I mean, are they the most exciting shows? Yeah, not really, but like they're pretty competent. I mean, like, my only comment about Headhunters was it was all it was all very logical and correct, but it took an awful long time to get around to the headhunting bit. So that's all you missed while I was away. Okay, so any guesses for number one? Because I have no idea.
Well, I know the answer, so I'm not
Nope.
guessing. Anyone?
I know one thing, but I don't want to say it in case it's right.
Anyone in the chat quickly? We have someone's guessed Wonderball or Killer Camp. The Night Scare for Hair Level Edition. No. Okay, well the answer is Small Fortune.
Oh,
Aka small
okay.
audiences. Yeah.
Right. Case in point, I'd entirely forgotten that we'd had that show.
I had to look it up. It wasn't last year, to be honest. It wasn't 2018, to be honest. I forgot about it.
Just in this year, January,
yes, very
wasn't
much
it?
so. Small
So
Fortune.
if it had been recommissioned, it would have been back around now, and we don't think it is. Is this American version still happening?
Well, they sold it, but whether that means it will actually go ahead, I don't know.
Yeah, well, often it doesn't.
Yeah.
But, right. I mean, the only thing about Small Fortune for me was it sort of lacked a bit of ambition in terms of, and I'm going to couch this quite heavily because I didn't mind it actually. America is spending $7 million on a whizzy chair for one of their quizzes, and we're kind of doing model railway sets on our quizzes, and that's really the only thing I had against it. Is otherwise I thought it was fine. I don't really know why it's got so much hate.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. People like ambition. They like these big set pieces, these massive things. And this felt literally small, which was the point. But people, it's sort of the opposite of what people want to see. They want to see, someone having to run a mile or something, not something tiny.
A lot of people in the comments suggested that the press or practice thing was a bit tedious. You're watching someone lose money for practicing endless amounts of times before having to go at it. Wasn't much fun. That seemed to be one of the main things. I think Brian Bressett was misused. Yeah, I mean it's what. The main thing I remember about Small Fortune is it's a rip-off of an app where you can play the games on the app, you're all pretty good, and then if you lost, you could pay 79p for one life and have one more go at it. And I thought, blimey, that's terrible. So that's my Small Fortune story.
I think it's falling into a trap that the Cube did better, which was fewer attempts but a slightly bigger spectacle, because even the Cube games are still relatively small, several orders of magnitude bigger than Small Fortune, which helps.
But they've got all the technical wizardry to make it exciting, haven't they?
Exactly. So, the filming techniques were much better, so I think that didn't help.
I wonder if they could have like shrunk the contestants down to the level of the set and kind of made it a bit like an inner space type thing.
Or the swing a bowl of soup from American Games.
Well, yeah, or some I don't know something that maybe might have helped rescue it somehow. But yeah, that means you do have to build a very large prop if they're going to score a goal in a goal. It has to be a big goal now. But so you sort of made it cost a lot more now. But I don't know.
Ben
Well,
Justice says the Cube and Small Fortune are miles apart, and I don't think that they are, because I think they're both trying to perform a particular task, a particular not tedious task, but a commonplace task, such as bouncing a ball, putting the balls into a container in 20 seconds or something for the Cube, whereas the Small Fortune was just being very precise and that sort of thing. So they had a lot of similarity.
Well, there we are. So that is your number one for the Hall of Shame this year. An interesting list. So, as usual, we're going to invite you to get involved. We have a poll for you to do. And who doesn't love opinion polls? So, if you go to tinyurl.com/barpoll2019, or if you're John Humphreys, tinyurl.com/barpoll2019, and you'll have a range of questions to fill out and give us your opinion on various topics to do with
chat quickly.
Game shows of the past year. So I'll just leave that up again. You want to just quickly go there, tinyurl.com/barpoll2019, and I shall remind you of that again after the next category, which is Hall of Fame, the best new show of the past year. So the results for 2018 are up there, and I think we are 3 for 5 on those, but they are the bottom 3.
Yes.
Altogether now, I am still completely baffled as to why that was cancelled, because it was just about gaining traction, and I don't know if that was a cost thing or whatever. Very, very puzzled by that one. And the button seems to be in eternal limbo. It doesn't seem to have been officially cancelled, but according to Alex Horn's Twitter account, he's still waiting, but he hasn't had a yes or a no. So we assume that's missing in action so far, which would be a shame. But there we are. Still not too bad a hit rate, even if one of them is a remake. And at least they did seem to listen to us on I'll Get This by making it longer. So there we are. Right. So let's go through the minor placings.
So joint 10th was Headhunters and RuPaul's Drag Race. 9, Supermarket Sweep.
Wow.
8, In for a Penny. And it might be worth pointing out that it got more votes in the Hall of Fame than it got in the Hall of Shame, but because fewer people voted in the Hall of Shame, it was higher up. 7th is Wonderball.
Oh, I like that show. That was good.
And 6 is Quizmaster.
Ooh.
Wow.
Hit the crossbar. Okay. Fair enough. Well, this all sound fair enough. So let's get into number 5 then.
Number 5.
I've got a horrible feeling.
TV genius David Bodicum has done it again. It's the Family Brain Games.
Hooray.
There we go.
I think it had a strong authoritative voice, giving the timings and the scores on the show.
Yeah, well, as if in case you're listening and you didn't know, I was the games producer on that show,
and voice of the ball, and voice of the balls,
yes.
voice of the cube.
3, 2, 1. Yeah, that took a lot of training. That actually.
Well, you had the flu during part of it as well, didn't you?
Oh no, yeah, I was terribly croaky. Yeah, so they said, I know what's the best thing for you to do. Let's take you away from making any important decisions. We're going to build a makeshift soundproof box at the back of the gallery we're going to put a roof on it that's if you bang the walls will fall on top of your head, and make it impossible for you to talk to the director because you're in a soundproof box, and you're going to be feeling very ill during the whole week. So yeah, that was fun. So yes, I think that show really came out pretty well, considering it was quite ambitious because you had the science show, you had the kind of reality bit of the families, and they had the games as well. It wasn't have another game in each episode, but I'm sort of glad we kind of dropped it because of needs must at the very last minute, because I think it would have been a bit too gamey and they wouldn't have had room for all the other bits. But anyway, what does anybody else think?
It's the A Word in Your Ear remake that we've been crying out for years. Certainly, the games that I shouted at the television most were the shape ones and trying to recreate the shape.
God.
It was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, twice out of the 4 times we played that game, they got the solution right just as the buzzer was sounding. And once we gave it to them and once we didn't. It didn't really matter. And luckily, it didn't matter either way in both of those cases. But yeah, it was just very strange how they got it right exactly at 10 minutes. Very, very odd.
It was really nice that it was a tournament structure as well. Like it felt more like a journey, to be cliche, but it was nice to, once you do get to know the families once, like you get to see them again if they win their episode and stuff like that. It just felt, because it was quite a short run, correct me if I'm wrong, it was within 2 weeks, wasn't it, that all went out?
Yeah, it was always intended to be like that, to sort of make a presence rather than get lost in kind of stringing it out once a week for 8 weeks, which I don't know. Maybe you tell me. Well, maybe that might have been better, because it might have given it a bit more time in between shows to sort of gather a bit of momentum. I don't know.
It was definitely nice as a way to like go back to every night to keep it fresh in your head, but I would worry that was like people only got into it at the very end and then they felt, oh well, now I've missed this show, and then they don't go back to the start if they're, I don't know. I like the tournament and I get why it was succinct, but also I just hope enough people saw it because I really liked it.
Yeah, I don't think it's coming back. I think what you've just said hits the nail on the head a little bit, because I had a lot of parents, because obviously it's meant to be a co-viewing show where, like, let's say 9 to 12-year-olds watch it with the parents, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
In the vain hope that TV commissioners can wrest their eyeballs off their tablets. And I did have a lot of parents come up to me and say, oh, what, we just started watching your show, but they'd started watching program 5.
Yeah.
And then by the time it finished, it's sort of like, well, you've missed half the series now. So even with iPlayer, I think they didn't necessarily catch the whole thing, unfortunately.
I like the mechanic.
Go on.
Oh, go on.
Go on.
I like the mechanic of in the end game. I thought the end game was the strongest. Not everyone having the information they needed, and they could only see their screen. But it was all about communication. Thought that was a lovely final round. I thought the questions were very well written. Well done, David, on that. The games were really good as well. The 3D preliminary shapes. Oh my goodness! I shouted at the screen. I will admit I struggled a little bit with this is just me with the reality side, so I tended to skip forward on iPlayer to get to the quizzy bits. I'm sure for others they'll have absolutely loved that bit, but yeah, good show.
Just before we move on, I noticed in the YouTube chat there was a lot of love for BBC Scotland's Wonderball, and it's quite possible that twice as many people voted for it and actually watched it. So impressive stuff. Apparently, one episode literally registered 0 viewers. So
oh no!
Literally, yes. I know it's coming back. Never mind. Anyway, number 4, Catchpoint.
Ah, okay. Happy with that.
Nice.
I remember hearing about this before, and in my head, I was. thinking, no, that sounds rubbish. Just on the title alone. But actually, the show is pretty good. It's quite a slick 30 minutes. Good questions. Quite fun idea behind it. I mean, yeah, why not?
The production values were very high. They could have skimped out on the question graphics, but they didn't. They were all richly animated. They had very expensive photos. As a picture researcher, they managed to get. I was in awe of some of the pictures that they got, the Beatles and things like that, which were not cheap. And then they had all these wonderful animations. It took what was a simple idea, as you say, catch this ball, and really polished it and shined and made it shine, which I think really helped.
God.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. I thought it looked great. I just felt that at the end of the day, the sorry, I've been invaded by a small 3-year-old.
I've seen that BBC News clip.
Oh yeah, it's very much like that. It eventually sort of, especially the later episodes, boiled down to, are you under the right one or the one either side? And I felt that if the answers were bunched together a bit closer, then the sort of, like, you definitely guaranteed it almost if you're right underneath it, and then you sort of can get it if you're on one either side, and you might get it if you're on either side of that, and you might have half a chance of 1% if you're 4 away from it. But it was just sort of, if you're 2 away, you might as well forget it, and that was a bit disappointing. I felt like, I know why there's going to be some issues with it, because you don't want, especially if there's older people playing, you don't want to exclude them necessarily. But I would have liked it to have been a bit more physical, so that you bodily fling yourself to the ball, no matter where it is, to give yourself a hope of getting it.
What the Flynn says on YouTube, Catch Point should have had proper crash match so that they could dive for it. He agrees, and I think maybe future series might go down that route a little bit, maybe space them out a little bit more, or have it so that they can fling themselves a little bit more around.
But like I say, I think that might have been a deliberate decision, so that it doesn't, preclude Granny from going on the show just because she
very true.
Want to dislocate her hip. So
I would watch that though.
Yes. Okay.
It wasn't a perfect show by any means. The final went on way too long, but it's worthy of being in the top 5.
Okay. Let's go for number 3.
We have a joint second, actually.
Okay. So first joint second is
the hit list.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm absolutely fine with, because for all its faults, material was actually very good and very prolongable, and I enjoyed watching it because of it.
People who like music quizzes have liked this a lot, and so I've really got a terrible Spotify playlist. I really tragic. It might just be sort of Pet Shop Boys, S Club 7, and TV theme tunes or something. So yeah, but yeah, if you're into that kind of thing, I think it's gone down very well with them.
I've got nothing else to say about it. I like it. I think it's a good show. I think it could do less chat, or it could do either less chat or an extra round for its 40 minutes. But I was around my mum's, you put it on, and you're all playing along. It's all good stuff.
There aren't many music quizzes about at the moment, are there?
No. Yeah.
And they tend to travel quite well as well in terms of a format. That's a format that a format that exists elsewhere, or that's a format.
I don't think so. I think it's a own brand. It's a BBC own brand one, I think.
I thought it was an independent production.
I think it is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it Tuesday's Child?
Yes,
yes, Tuesday's Child. That's right. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So they may well have a chance of marketing that around the world. Okay. So the next second equals is
Race Across the World. Even though a lot of people put race around the world on their ballots, I did my editorial judgment to put the actual correct name.
Poor ballot.
This was just a lot of fun to watch. A very stripped back reality show with a clear challenge, good stories, great sort of camera shots. It was just nice.
I know a lot of people just like at a glance described it as, oh, it's BBC Amazing Race, and yes, that is exactly what it is, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Like that is exactly how the BBC would do Amazing Race if they did, well, hypothetically buy it. But like, there were definitely with the job element of it, like that was probably where you got more of your like education element or let's actually stop and look around, which are moments that I honestly would have liked to see a bit more of, but also like you do get caught up in the speed of it and the thrill of it, and yeah, I really like the show a lot.
That's a good comment. Sorry, go ahead. You had.
I was just going to say, when it came out, I described it as the unamazing race. It sort of felt like Travel Administration, the game. But I watched the first episode, and by the end of it, I was thinking, okay, I'll stick it out for another one. And then I watched the second one, and I kept going. And I love The Amazing Race, but that show has had or at least it needs a big kick up its backside. The focus is entirely different. The focus on this was the journey, on the relationships of the people doing the journey. Not the challenges, not anything they did. Although, of course, if they did any jobs, such as the father and son, when they did the dog walking, the son absolutely hated it. But he got into it. And you got to know the people. There were far fewer contestants than on The Amazing Race, which also really helped.
I was actually disappointed when a team got eliminated because I thought it didn't really need. I mean, I had to find someone to push them on to make sure they were actually racing. But I thought all the teams had pretty good, pretty compelling stories.
It was very well cast. Yeah.
I was a bit surprised that the next version is going to be a celebrity one.
Yeah, I think they might have jumped a bit too quickly to that sort of thing.
Yes,
I do think there is a sort of a metric in terms of how quickly do they reach for the word celebrity.
Well, they've got a second civilian series as well.
Yeah.
Oh, do they? I didn't know that.
Well, they're going to be on BBC
One more civilian series.
I think they have one of each.
Yes, one of each. Yeah.
I think I've heard it's moving to BBC One. I'm sure someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
Only for the celebrity.
Okay, because it feels like a very, very quick change for that to happen. Almost as if it's being set up to fall a bit, I wonder. What Race Across the World reminded me most of, in terms of its styling and its tone, was the old Channel 4 show Lost from about 2000, 2001. Oh, yeah. People just dropped off in a random place and had to work their way back to London. It had a similar sort of direction, I suppose. And a similar quite interesting challenge. And I think I liked it because of that quite a lot, actually.
It must have been an absolute nightmare to produce. When the final four teams got to the end, the first team won. Second team got there 3 hours later, pretty relatively close for however many thousands of miles. The next two teams didn't arrive until the next day, and that's actually a massive gap and a pain in the us production wise to because you've got to have someone in Singapore all that time ready for them and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what they tweak for a second series, because I'm sure they obviously won't have the same checkpoints, so that's obvious, but whether they'll have an extra leg and then one more elimination, because I kind of felt like, yes, it was incredibly disappointing when a team went away, but I kind of feel like it needed one more elimination. Controversial, I know.
I was quite glad that they didn't reach for the reset button, though. So, like, if you arrived 3 hours later, then you set off 3 hours later after the sort of pit stop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very brave to have a bit in a ship where it reduced 3 weeks to 5 minutes, because it's not much to show. That's that could have gone very differently if someone went around the sea rather than across it.
Oh yeah, sorry, you've won by a week. Yeah. Well done.
I mean, I thought the editing was pretty good, especially the final episode where it made it look quite close, even though it was actually 3 hours apart. You sort of noticed you looked carefully at the signing in book when the second team went to sign in. Good stuff. Looking forward to more of that.
Okay, so the top show of 2019 was
The Wall.
Way.
Yeah, mugs.
Hmm.
Drop it. Anyway, The Wall. This was a fun show. The hosts end up being much better. Let's be clear here. Dave Dyer, not a natural game show host, but he gels with The Wall. He doesn't actually have to do very much in it other than have a rapport with the contestants, really. So drop it. It's taking liberties.
Is it not drop 'em?
It depends how many balls there are.
Or was it? Good point.
I mean, I actually prefer this to the American one. The American one, the numbers were so big, it always seemed a bit too abstract in a way. When you see millions flying about, going on and off, you sort of think, well, it's just numbers, really. It's probably one of the very few shows where actually reducing numbers a little bit makes it a bit more relatable, if anything. It felt like proper money, but you knew the value of it.
so for anybody who's got any influence with it's one of the Endemol companies that does it, isn't it?
Yes.
Please do the reveal the other way around.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Yeah.
Because it's like you're getting the contestants, the host, and the entire audience to play act for the benefit of the person coming out of the back of the wall.
Yeah.
Surely you get the one person from the back of the wall to play act and then reveal what they've done to everybody else. Because I just cannot for the life of unless there's some really weird contractual thing that I'm not understanding. I do not understand why it was done that way around.
Yeah. I might even suggest that they reveal whether they shredded the contract or accepted it, and then do the final 3 red balls, because that could be the point where it's like a prove out, or it could be a case of, okay, you've currently got 75 grand. There's 3 balls. Let's see how much you're actually going to go away with. You could be wiped out. The current way though is it grates my teeth. The rest of the show is wonderful. I am very impressed with how you can't see the studio ceiling. It's an incredibly tall set.
How many stories is
there's
it? Is it
lights.
4 stories or something like that?
It might be 5. It's a lot. And there's lights going up to the ceiling, but you can't see the ceiling. I'm very impressed with the lighting director on that. Very, very good.
Yeah, well, obviously they borrowed a lot of the plans from the American show, and that's done in a effectively film studio type environment. So
It was filmed in Poland, wasn't
yeah,
it?
that's right. Yeah.
yeah.
It's been recommissioned for a second series. Do we think it's going to get made here, or is that going to get made elsewhere?
I don't know. If I think it's going to be a
Because-
long-term bet, then they might start making it here. But otherwise, I don't see any reason. They might ship some more British people over to Poland to sit in their audience and laugh at the jokes a bit more.
Because I'm not sure we have a tall enough studio for it. That's my only question.
Well, only if they used maybe a film set like Shepperton or something. But
Oh,
yeah,
of course. Yeah.
but yeah, it would be an issue. Bit strange that it was such a big hit in America, and yet it hasn't been recommissioned for what, nearly 2 years now.
As I gather, a third series was filmed, but it's not been shown.
Oh wow.
What?
I know Buzzablog goes on about this a lot on his Twitter, so no one's quite sure why. I mean, there was some unpleasantness regarding Chris Hardwick in the Me Too movement, but it ended up being
Yes, that's a
it,
good point.
it ended up being nothing, I think, in the end. So it will easily be clear for it. So
Yeah, all right. Maybe that was the factor.
something interesting to point out, possibly. Top 5 shows in the Hall of Fame. BBC, 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 BBC,
Yeah.
BBC. Top 5 shows at the Hall of Shame.
Well, sorry.
ITV, well, Headhunters BBC, ITV and ITV. So I'm not sure what that means or what that says, but there you go. You've also had people point out that it's been a very 3 out of 5 year, and I agree with that. There's nothing. I like all those top 5 shows. I like some quite a lot, but there's not an awful lot there to make you sit up and take notice. In the same way, there's not an awful lot in the Hall of Shame to make you think, well, this is rubbish. I mean, everything it's only swing and a miss rather than an awful idea that shouldn't have been done in the first place. And all the good things have got their own issues.
At least the first 4 of those are definitely coming back. So hey, BBC, why not make it 5 out of 5? Just saying. All right, let's move on. Because we're slightly running out of time. So one final plug for the view poll. If you've just joined us, there's 65 of you watching now. It's just fantastic. Thank you for joining us. So tinyurl.com/barpoll2019 if you want to fill out a quick poll and let us know what you thought of various issues to do with game shows of the past year. So that URL once again, tinyurl.com/barpoll2019. We've so far had 49 responses, so that's nearly everybody. So that means I'm expecting at least another 16 votes in before we get to that section. Okay. So we are not doing the Radio 5 this year. We will do it occasionally, but we felt that there wasn't quite enough new blood in the schedules for that. But we will do the online 5 because with quality like that, who wouldn't want to learn about more of this kind of stuff? It is a little bit of a rag bag because some are events, some are podcasts.
Yeah, I thought I should say. I apologise to Ben Just. I think you were robbed because when I wrote the thing for this, the intention was always sort of formatty formats. So things like the top 100 UK list, which is great, and you should always watch. You should go and watch it, and there'll be a link to it in the write-up. That didn't strike me as the sort of thing this is about. Then people kept voting for fingers on buzzers and other things, and you think, well, actually, maybe I should have let you vote for it. So what you're gonna have to do, Ben?
It gets an honorary.
Yes, we're doing an honorary mention.
I think so.
But what you have to do then for this year is do positions 101 to 200 in 10 more videos, and we'll let people vote for that next year. So excellent. And also, what's really quite good to know is that the take up for this was a lot higher than last year. So this looks like it might be a new exciting thing. So
all right,
number 5.
Are we going to just dive straight into number 5? Yeah.
The birthday game.
Okay, yes. Which is Richard Osman's new podcast where he invites comedians to guess the year in which various celebrities of that week were born.
He is, of course, 76.
And it was absolutely fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it,
I felt that it could maybe have been expanded into sort of like, when was Skittles first made, rather than just always about people.
I'm intrigued if they do another series next year around the same sort of time. How many celebrities are there? I mean, surely.
Well, that is what you call a nice problem. Yeah, it's like if you read the sort of Times birthday list every day. There's about 7 people you've heard of, and then the other people are kind of like Dame Margaret Bookworm of Altrincham, who was the secretary to the Defence Secretary of in 1964.
There were a couple of those, to be fair.
But like if they get to that stage, I'm sure they'll find a way of expanding it out. Like I said, you could say the birthday of certain brands or fictional characters, or there's other ways of taking it. But for now, that's in number 5. Okay, number 4.
Number 4 is Hyperdrive on Netflix, which I really enjoyed. A very, very stylish driving challenge show. Sort of tried to ape sort of Fast and Furious style look. with some actually really interesting looking obstacles as well, and actually some surprisingly good storylines going through the competition. So well done, Hyperdrive. Did anyone else watch it?
No.
No.
No,
It's worth a
sorry.
watch. If nothing else, it's the main sort of obstacle is like a leveler, which is a bridge, which you have to try and balance effectively. But it's very, very sensitive. It's probably it probably carries too much weight towards the driver's lap, to be honest. But it's a genuinely impressive bit of set design, of set piece. So have a look at that. If you've not watched it, have a look.
Okay, well, I have a Netflix account. It's just one of those things I haven't got around to watching. Okay, number 3.
3 also on Netflix. It's Awake, the $1 Million Game.
Ah,
Which again, I thought was pretty good actually. I mean, it's not very original. I mean, it's basically a Dex Poker Face, but with counting things.
Yeah.
But I thought it was
description.
quite stylishly done. I thought, I mean, the $1 Million Gamble's rubbish, but $1 Million Gambles these things often are. But up to that point, I think it does a lot of things right. It's a bit 7 out of 10, but it's a good 7 out of 10.
the thing I slightly guilty of, and I do wonder if this is something that we're going to come across in one of the poll questions I've just asked, which we'll look at in a minute, is the thing about the scrubber bar or the timeline bar, because you can get a bit cheeky with it and sort of go, well, I'm sort of a bit bored of all of this bit. Maybe I'll just sort of skip to the end and just watch the last 7 minutes about the $1 Million Gamble. And then once you've done that once, then you sort of get in a bit of a habit of doing it, and then you just sort of kind of go through and just watch all the good bits.
I would say, to its credit, it didn't repeat any games in its 8-episode run, so that's pretty good.
It was very clever also how there seemed to be a bit of science in terms of how awake you were has something actually to do with the skills of the game as well. Which, I mean, I don't think they necessarily needed to do that, but I appreciated that they tried to brain it up in that way. All right, if there's nothing more to say about that, we can move on.
Number 2, and I have to say, it's had some excellent guests on this year. It's Fingers on Buzzers.
Okay, which is, I think, the same position it was in last
It is.
year. That's, for those who don't know, it's the podcast, Game of Show podcast, with Jenny Ryan and
Lucy Porter.
Lucy Porter, yes, of course. Yes, it's still going. It's and it's having its live.
About to have a live show. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Coming up soon in London. So obviously, sort of slightly following the same pattern as No Such Thing as a Fish. Okay. So the number one best non-linear show.
Better than Fingers on Buzzers. Better than Awake. Better than Hyperdrive. Better than a birthday game. It's Tom Scott's Game Garage.
Hey.
It's David again.
There we go.
He gets everywhere.
You just can't keep a good man down.
No matter how much we try.
Yes, indeed. Well, there we are. Well, thank you very much. I'm very flattered. Obviously, slightly biased audience, so I shall. I'm not saying that I'm going to go down the high street and going to be stopped, and people are going to go, "Are you that guy from that does who doesn't appear on the Game Garage?" Yeah. Well, yeah, we've had some success with that, which I can't really say anything about just yet because it's still somewhat in the mix. But we are trying to come back with a third run, maybe some slightly different takes on the concept, but we just haven't had time because we've been doing other things, which some of you may know about, which will be coming out first. But if we do get some time in the spring, then we have some other games, 3 or 4 new formats lined up. So watch this space.
What I'll also add is that there were about 27, 28 different things that got votes in this. So on the after party, where the stats are, I'll list everything that was legitimate, so you can explore things yourself. Some look quite interesting. So go and have a look at that afterwards.
Yeah, it's always going to be a bit of a ragbag of different personal preferences, that one, and I'm looking forward to seeing that list myself. Okay, so let's see if I can get this to work. Did that work?
Yep.
Looks like it.
You
Yep.
can see.
Yep.
Yep, great. So we have had 54 responses in total. So was 2019 better or worse for game shows? Well, most people say better. I'm going to stop taking responses just so that people things don't jump around.
Stop voting now.
Yeah, stop voting now. Yeah, otherwise your call may still be charged. Yeah, I suppose given that we didn't have a particularly ferocious year in terms of Hall of Shame, then that's fair enough. Which channel or broadcaster has made the game shows you enjoy the most? Oh, very split between BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV, with Dave representing once
Yay.
again very well. Obviously, always punches above its weight in recent years.
Well, that's interesting, given that the Hall of Shame was mostly ITV and the Hall of Fame was mostly BBC.
Well, BBC doesn't count totally for half the votes if you add
Very
those two
true.
together, whereas all of the ITV channels is 25%. So, that kind of does follow. There we go. What is your favorite mini genre of game shows? So we have action adventure doing well. That's in first place. Not completely unsurprising given our clientele. The Everyman Quiz, so Pointless and the Chase, doing slightly better than things like Only Connecting University Challenge. Again, slightly. It's pretty split. It's the old Are you a pointless or chase person or a university challenge or Only Connect type person, and then the other one that gets some pretty decent votes was the Family Game Show. Five Gold Rings, etc. So, yeah, again, I think that's for reasons that I've never quite understood. Things like cooking shows and singing reality shows, which always do tons of fantastic numbers in the ratings, never really get represented terribly well on our site. But there we are. That's democracy for you. What's your favorite TV production company? Right, I did my best to list all the ones that I think are currently in business doing actual game shows. This wasn't easy. So if any execs from game shows are watching saying you haven't listed my company, then I'm very sorry. But I did try. I spent quite a lot of time trying to add this together, particularly with all the mess that is the super indies these days. So Endemol Shine are the best or the most popular, probably because they do most shows. And then ITV Studios is second, Possessed and Potato. So presumably the Chase crowd and the fans of the possessed formats goes there. In third position, it's Man and J. So Fizz.
Get working on Survivor, Banijay. I'm waiting for it.
Except Man and J have now bought out Endemol Shine, so they are going to be worth 45%. Maybe that's why. maybe this is why they bought them out. You see, they wanted a bigger slice of this pie, so that next time they're going to be absolutely dominating that pie chart. Okay, so just in terms of like what things do you do in terms of your viewing habits to save time? 43% skip the intro, which I'm surprised is not higher, if I'm honest. 81% skip the adverts, which I'm sure ITV are thrilled about.
I can't. I have no idea how to do it with ITV. Please let me know. No. I would never advocate it, but please let me know.
Well, I did say on catch up. So if you venture and you manage to watch ITV Hub, oh sorry, of course nobody watches ITV Hub. Watch on IT
Gosh.
at fast speed. I'm surprised not more people do that. I guess that's more of a podcast YouTube type thing. And some people, as I was alluding to earlier, a quarter of people move the scrubber bar to a different point in the show, and basically a lot of comments about getting rid of the contestant chat.
I noticed Josh Reed says in the chat he didn't see the contestant chat or sub stories ones. I didn't either. So I'm not sure. I suspect they got more votes if
No.
people could see them. I'm not sure why it happened, but there
No,
you go.
because I didn't think to put that in, but I did leave an other.
Oh, I
category,
see.
so
Right, fair enough. Yeah.
You were able to, that's what all of these ones are.
That makes
They were
sense.
able to,
Yeah.
but together they would have probably accounted for about 3 or 4 votes. Right, what do you think of when shows like Bake Off and Taskmaster are bought out by a rival broadcaster? So, it's basically most people are going for the middle option of 3, saying I don't like it, but I'll cope. Whereas 20% are saying they really, really don't like it, and 12% are saying that maybe the new channel will be a better home for it.
I think it's
So,
highly dependent on the circumstances, of course. For Taskmaster, I am quite worried about it. I think it'll probably change as little as possible in this very first series on Channel 4. And then I'm worried that Channel 4 will then get their claws into it and say, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? So, yeah, when Taskmaster comes along, which is very, the jewel in Dave's crown, I'm really worried for that. But other circumstances, channel switches are really good. That is an example, I think, of a very rubbish channel change.
well, Dave has appointed 2 new commissioners, almost specifically targeted to coming up with a replacement for Taskmaster. So
That's going to be a difficult job. It's not something you can't just get another. Taskmaster's also like a unique show, I suppose, and it's such a. How do you replace it?
yeah,
What do you
but
replace it
I
with?
think generally, I think Dave's commissioning has been
Yeah, it's not been bad.
probably
To be fair, yeah.
the best of any entertainment I can think of across the channels, if I'm honest. So they haven't done too bad. I think one commissioner was asked the question, "Do you only commission hits?" Which is a very flattering question to be asked.
They do quite well
Um,
with good formats for their talent that they've got that they can use. So yeah, fair play, really.
what do you miss most about game shows of the past compared to modern shows? So this is quite spread. So 20% of people says actually don't miss anything, and 18% said better standard celebrity guests. Well, if you look at sort of
Yes.
things like 321, for example, in the old days, you'd be amazed at some of the standards of the sort of the guests who would get on that to go up to lead.
Very high or very low?
Shane
No, very
Ritchie.
high. Yeah. Well, maybe in the later days. Actual prizes have cashed as well as the Steam Cheese recorded with real instruments, and the other one was sets with moving parts. What else have we got here? 30-minute shows more common. Yeah, that's a good point.
Surprised that wasn't higher
Much
actually.
pacier. Much pacier. Well, these are all sort of individual
Yeah,
comments people
yeah.
have put in. Being able to get there with more out there rules. Yeah, well, if you look at some of the 60s experimental pilots, some of them were really quite wacky. Less getting to know the contestants' personalities. I'm sure a man has written that comment. No redos. Kept going.
I think no revamps.
No, I think if something went wrong, they just play along with it and
I think
keep.
yeah.
Oh,
and
yes.
that's partly because things like the Golden Shot were live, and also because partly sometimes they scripted those fake errors anyway. Contestant chat again, emphasis on music. Yeah. Okay. Which of these one series wonders would you bring back for another go? Again, vote quite split, but the top 4 were the Exit List.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a cult for that show. 5 Minutes of Fortune, which I would think was worth another go, but I think perhaps with easier questions. Armchair Detectives
Oh, it's
represents.
David again. David and Dad again.
Yeah, and The Bubble, again, another show that people never seem to quite let go of. It always seems to come back. The thing with The Bubble, though, was it kind of went into this weird situation of they presented new stories that were real, but then were fake, but then were real. If that made any sense whatsoever. Which statement do you agree with most? TV commissioners for legacy channels like BBC, ITV, and Channel 4. Again, basically, you're all sitting on the fence. And and you're saying they're doing an okay job within a broadcast medium that's declining, with then 15% of you saying that they're of the ideas that are offered to them, they pick the best ones, which generally speaking, I suppose you have to, I would probably agree with, because when you sort of see the things that don't get commissioned or hear about the things that don't get commissioned, you sort of go, actually, fair enough. They probably made the right decision on that. I'm not sure if we have time to go through all of these, but let's have a quick look. Elevator pitch. Intent was a fewer tell us a show idea. A Whittle revival.
Ah,
Most cash loses at the end, most cash wins. Okay, that sounds a little bit like first and last. This show will not contain Louis Spence. Well, there's a title for a show. Something like The Chase, but The Chasers are stupid people. Okay, not quite sure how you'd let the stupid people know that they're stupid. But I will copy the rest of those and put them on the final write up that Nick's going to put on his website. And finally, the Hidden Gem Award. Which of the minor news shows do you think deserves special recognition? Okay, in fourth place we have Giggle Quiz. Third place we have Snack Masters, which I know some people in the comments were mentioning earlier. Second place is the Cash Machine, the STV show with Susan
Yeah, that's
Calvin,
right.
was
No,
it?
Lorraine
No, it
Kelly.
was
Yeah.
no, it was
Yeah.
Lorraine Kelly. Yeah, another some Scottish ladies mixed up, and the winner was Wonderball. So there we are.
Justice for Wonderball.
There we are. Yes. So you can stop with the pitchforks now. Wonderball won something. Okay, so we are getting to the end of the podcast now. So let's have a very quick run through the Golden Five, which is for your favourite shows, old or new, of the past year, and that was last year's result, which was all kind of a turnaround, because Only Connect went back up to the top, Chase dropped down one, Impossible was a new entry, and Pointless was completely absent from the listing, which was, I think, the first time in ages that that's been the case. So let's see what you thought of this year.
Number 5. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Solid.
Yep.
Yep, fair enough. I'm not sure there's a lot to say about that one. It's still going.
Number 4.
Watching people actually get to the top is still exciting.
I have to say, when the revival was first muted, I was scared it was going to leave £8,000. It would give any money away, and it's not been like that. So I don't know where they're finding it all, but great, exciting to watch. Number 4, Richard Osman's House of Games.
Yeah, very good.
Figure find it's Richard Osman's House of Games, David. Ben Justice is in the chat, and he will point us out.
Yeah.
That's literally how I've written it on my list. It's good. Right.
There we are. There we go. There we are. Are we all happy now?
Also, and James Allison, who also watched it as well. So well done. Well done, James and Ben.
One wonderful variety of questions, and a wonderful feel about the show. So very well done.
Number 3.
Number 3.
Taskmaster.
Yay! It's gone up.
Yes, it was number 4 last year, which is where Impossible was. Yeah, I have to say I am a bit of a cynic in terms of this Channel 4 move. And my TV career depended on Channel 4 doing new and original things, and the fact that quite a lot of things it currently does, both in entertainment and faction entertainment, are remakes or imports or whatever. I'm not terribly happy with, but we shall see. I mean, I don't blame the format owners for doing it, but I do hope that we start to get some weirder stuff out of Channel 4. I know that they're looking to do more new stuff in daytime, so that's good. But I don't think. Anyway, I'm going to rant on too long.
I believe they have commissioned a show called Penises. So they are doing some interesting things.
What?
A documentary.
Okay.
Anyway, carry on.
Okay. Isn't that just naked
Yeah.
attraction?
Basically.
Yeah. All right.
Number 2
Timothy.
is The Chase.
Which is the show that just seems to take up all the oxygen at tea time on ITV. Although, to be fair, what was it? Cash Trapped does seem to have slipped into the schedule and survived.
It managed to finish up with about 2.5 mil. So before Christmas, it's not amazing, but it's not bad by any means. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So whether there's any more room for Bradley? Well, yeah. I mean, like, is it the format or is it the host? And does it matter?
I suspect it's a nice problem for ITV to have. What's interesting about the Chase is that this coming year is probably its most interesting because it's got a new chaser and it's got a new spin-off coming, Beat the Chasers. Who knows how that's going to affect the Chasers' long-term prospects.
So I think we could probably guess what's at number 1, but I'm not going to assume anything.
I've had people ask where did Cash Trapped rank. It ranked 13th. Just to answer your question. Only Connect's number 1, obviously. And let's be honest, slightly boringly. It's a great show. Don't get me wrong, but if he's finished number 1 for like forever, and I want somebody else to do it.
Well, I think it had a better year this year, 2019, than 2018, because I think they found a nice little niche for their specials to have a bit more fun. Yes, the normal shows are excellent. The specials are quite bizarre, and in a nice way, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I'm always a big fan of like making shows feel individual and not as if it's sort of this kind of expandable foam that you sort of go, is this episode 47 or was it number 63? So anything that makes things feel different is good in my book. So yes, they slightly lowered the episode count and made more specials out of it. So interesting to see where they take it in the future.
People ask about where other things came, so I got a very quick rundown of what was beneath it. 6 was Impossible, 7 was Tenable, 8 was Pointless, joint 9th was Race Across the World, The Circle, joint 11th was Crystal Maze Tipping Point, joint 13th Cash Trap for Wall, then Countdown, and Catchphrase, University Challenge, joint 16th. The top 25 or so will all be on Bother's Bar very soon.
Okay, so just to wrap things up, that means that the game show Prime Minister of the UK once again is Victoria Crown-Mitchell. So congratulations to her for her second term in office, and of course throughout this evening we've been trailing this thing of the must vote counter, and I can finally reveal, of course, it was. Daffy from N-Dubs. Well done if you got that right. And I hope you picked up on some of the clues that we were dropping throughout. So thank you very much for watching. You can find in.
So if you give me half an hour to make sure all the formatting is correct, The full article will be up at ukgameshows.com, and numbers will be at the Bothers Bar after party about 5 minutes after that. So look out for Twitter, because I'll tell you when it's up.
And there'll be when you are voting, often you put in your pithy comments, so it's often a very entertaining read. So do go to ukgameshows.com and see what comments you put in, and yeah, all the very geeky information about voting percentages and any other stuff from the results of that poll that you've just done will be on there too. So it just remains for me to thank the other guests on the podcast. So that would be Daniel Peake. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks once again for joining us, Laura.
Thank you.
And the real vote counter, who's done an awful lot of work putting this all together. So thanks once again
Thank
to
you.
Nick
I'd
Gates.
like to thank Scott Rux for technical support over the last couple of days, getting all the sound worked out. So thank you, Scott.
Yes, he spent several hours ensuring that you can hear us. Ever since Google's shut down proper Hangouts, it's been a bit of a pain. So thank you very much indeed to Scott. My name is David Bodicum, and we hope we will see you once again for more of the same. From us all here, thank you again, and
Good night.